Hi, I'm Isabel, founder and firebrand of the Uprising Spark.
Hi, I'm Lenora. I'm the creator of The Bitchy Bookkeeper.
Hi, I'm Kristen Tetzi, author of The Age of the Child, and we are the three founding non-mothers of Childfree Girls. Today, we're going to talk about stuff, lots of stuff. First of that stuff is in part inspired by a comment left by a very angry but apparently very happy father who does not understand child-free people, thinks we're selfish and greedy and uncaring. He had a whole list of compliments for people who don't have children. And that led us to discuss how people come to be child-free in the first place, especially possessing none of those qualities that he thinks we're lack. You know what I mean? We are caring. We are still loving. We're just people like anybody else. There are lots of selfish, uncaring, horrible parents. But people will often wonder how people become child-free, or if there is something that makes you child-free, or what. So we kind of wanted to discuss starting with childhood, because I think there's something to be said for socialization, and whether you're able to ignore it or whether it just leads you down a certain path. So I'm curious to know how all of us played initially when we were kids. Were there dolls? Did you play marriage games with friends or Doctor in the Woods? I did.
Not until I was in my 20s.
Doctor is weird when you're little. It's a very strange game.
I have never understood. I mean, I've had conversations with guys who swear up and down that they've done the doctor thing when they were like between 5 and 7. I'm like, what the fuck? It's weird to me.
That's about how old I was. I was probably about 5 and 7 when we played in the woods.
Anyway, I ran around naked in the woods by myself, which I still do on vacation. But, that did not involve somebody else.
I don't like the woods, so.
Well, my childhood was religious, so I had dolls, but I also had a younger brother, and I wasn't allowed to have fancy Barbies or anything like that, so I ended up mostly playing with my brother's toys. And again, from a young age, I knew that I did not want to be a mom, and I also was really musical, so music was more my thing than anything else, more so than playing with dolls. But I do remember that MASH game where it's like Mansion, where you have like the car and the guys and the something else, and it's like your future, what's going to happen, and you do like this number game. It's called MASH. No, not that.
Oh no!
It was this paper game that we played in elementary school all the way through till middle school, I guess, where you choose the kind of house. You can have a mansion, a shack, a house, an apartment, and then you list cars from like high end to crappy cars. Oh yeah, then your career, and then who you're gonna marry, and you do this thing, and then I don't know. It's this game where you just tick off all the boxes, and then you get your future at the end. Like, so I remember doing that, and it was like, oh, and how many kids you were gonna have. Another instance, like I was a big reader, so I'd spend a lot of time in my room reading books. And I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to name my kids after these characters and stuff like that I now go, like, it was just automatic, just an automatic assumption. Even though, excuse me, I knew that that's, like, there was a part of me that was like, really? Do I have to? But it's just, you just say that, and then your friends say that, and then everybody older, and I also hung out around older people. It was the religion thing. You hung out with older people. And everyone was married. So it was just, and there was basically no hope. Luckily, I'm very naturally stubborn and headstrong, and when I know what I want, I go for it. Doesn't matter what people are saying. So hence why I'm not married and I don't have kids, because I knew that's what I wanted. But automatically, the assumption was that I would get married to a guy and have kids.
In my case, I remember that I had the largest Barbie collection ever. Like, I had all the different Barbies with all the different outfits. And my grandmother used to sew outfits for my Barbies. But I don't recall being obsessed with them. You know what I mean? Like, these girls were like, oh my God, Barbie's like everything. I want to be like Barbie when I grow up. Like, I don't remember that. I used to play video games as well, because I think the NES came out, I think it was late 80s or early 90s or something, and my parents got me one, and I used to play that a lot. And I wasn't, I don't recall ever playing Doctor or House. Like it wasn't, I mean, maybe I think I did. I mean, of course, I think most kids do, but I don't have like a clear memory of that. I was always very, very curious by nature, and what I did is I just buried myself with books. Like I used to read all the time, and I think I just spent most of my time like reading mainly mystery novels for the Babysitters Club or something like that. But you know, just like Lenora mentioned, when I was a kid, I do remember conversations about when you grow up. It was always how many kids are you going to have, not are you going to have any kids. It was always about, you know, I'm going to find myself a guy and get married, and we're going to have two kids or whatever. And it was always there was always the assumption that it was going to happen. There wasn't anybody was saying or like questioning that, you know. Even when I was a teenager, it was the same thing. So that's what I remember most. How about you, Chris?
Well, there was Doctor, but that had nothing to do with being socialized to have children. It was more socialized to be naughty. I don't know what is up with Doctor. I just know, you know, you're kids, you're curious, so you find a way to explore each other's.
And it's not doctor like giving birth doctor type.
No. It's like, okay, it's your turn to lie down, and then like we poke your back or
Poke something else. It's just
put
like, okay.
a thermometer in your butt. Stick. And I did play. I played a variation of House called Bag. A friend and I played it. It was boy and girl, but I always wanted to play the boy, and not because I identified as any kind of gender, but because I didn't want to be the woman. Because I thought the woman's job was boring, and it just didn't appeal to me, and I thought it was cooler to be the boy. I did have dolls, but it was primarily for their hair. I was very obsessed with I loved dolls with long, wavy. I had a doll that had hair kind of like what you're wearing now, Lenora. And then I had another one with long, fluffy, blonde hair. And I had Barbies too, just a couple, and I also liked them for their hair. The dolls I wasn't very maternal toward, as I discussed with Isabel on the podcast I did with her on the Honest Uproar. I fought with my dolls. And then later, I was more into video games too. As a teenager or a younger teenager, I was playing Atari all the time. After school, I'd go home and sit on the floor, listen to Def Leppard, Hysteria, the tape. It would just skip, it would just go from side to side automatically. And I would just listen to it while playing Asteroids for hours. I got so good at Asteroids. But I don't think there was ever a, when you have kids. My dad never said when you have kids, this or that. The only time I ever heard that was once I had a stepmother. And I remember playing the game of life for the first time with my second husband. And it got to a point where I had to put kids in my car. And I just remember thinking, ugh. And I know that I think the more kids you put in your car, that's supposed to be good. Or maybe not. No, kids are bad because they're an expense. But I just know even the thought of putting little kids in my fake game car just upset me immensely. So even though we've all discussed why or when or how we discovered we didn't want children, or the recognition of the time that we didn't have to, eureka moment of not having to have kids, I am interested to know whether there's anything about having children you think would be fun. I mean, in the ideal fantasy Hallmark movie land of being a parent, or even little things you would enjoy, even if you don't want kids and you don't want to do it, but like the little things that could be cool.
Well, it's always like a raging no, because I love the role of auntie. Like, I am very fulfilled and happy with the role of auntie, and I remember like my years as a teacher, I loved having conversations with kids. once they were able to talk, like I'm not afraid to hold babies. I'm not afraid to be around toddlers. I smile at kids at the grocery store if they're cute and looking up at me, but I like having conversations with kids, let's say like from the age of 4 on. My best friend has 2, but they were fluent in Russian before they were speaking English. So our communication was always kind of stilted. But I do like having conversations with kids. So I would like that. But the thing is you can't turn them off when they live with you. And so I wouldn't, that's such a hard question, because there's the thing about being a mom is that it never stops.
Well, that stuff aside.
No, I know, but I can't get past that. Because I love having conversations with kids. I like having conversations with teenagers when they're willing to talk to you. And I guess I could say things like, "Oh, it'd be fun." I mean, come on, this kid would be going to beauty school. We'd be like, if it were a girl, I'd be dolling the thing up. But that's just like, I don't know, it's just superficial crap. And it's more than that.
The meteorologist on the Today Show was talking a couple days ago. She has a kid who's now starting to talk a lot, and it's gotten to the point with her where she was saying, he just won't stop talking. She said, I get to the point where I'm so close to saying shut up that I'm like, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
It's not to say shut up to a kid, but as much as she loves him, which of course must be said, all that talking is just making her crazy.
And the thing is imagine this, I was a talker as a child.
No.
So I know what it's like. I know, oh my God, I can't believe it. I know what it's like to have adults say, Lenora, stop talking. And I know how it made me feel.
That's painful. It really hurts.
It is painful. And the nice thing about being an adult is you can create your own platforms where you can talk 24/7 if you want to.
You can.
But, I think about that, like, if I were in the parental role, for sure, I mean, come on, I can't imagine having a quiet child. So, it would crush me to tell that child to shut up, because I know what that's like, and I don't ever want to say that to a kid. I have, as a teacher, I was pretty disciplined as far as saying, look, we need to focus. I had no problem saying that, but there's so many things. I just remember so strongly how it felt to be a child, that if I were the parent, for my own sanity, I'd be like, please shut up. But it would devastate me. And I can't get past that because it's the conversations with kids that I think can be brilliant in the right circumstances, but it never stops.
You think, because my dad would hurt my feelings sometimes too, if, I'd be, over enthusiastic about something and I'd be very excited. And when I was very excited, I would talk really fast, and I can be a lot of energy for someone who isn't quite prepared for energy. Just ask Ian every morning. I'm just like, and he's like, coffee.
Or our chats when Isabel and I are still sleeping, and we sent like 300 text messages.
What's going on? But I think I wonder if there's something to, because you as a parent, I would imagine you can't make everything about your child. They have to learn, this is my time. You go away now. You have to recognize that not everything is about you. The world doesn't revolve around you. And so even if it hurts your feelings, it's kind of an early lesson that, hey, just this is it for you right now. Go find something else to do. And it just seems like a valuable thing to learn, kind of like losing at a sport, or, not always winning a trophy, or, you have to have disappointment if you're going to be prepared for adulthood at all.
100%. And too many kids are being coddled. Like, we had the anti-bullying thing when I was in middle school, which I totally stand by, but there's a lot of things where parents are hovering, trying to not have their kids experience heartbreak, which is not realistic if you're a human being.
That makes entitled adults.
Yeah, that too.
And they think that everything has to be handed to them. And I think that's one of the things that I really hate about many parents and schools today. Because when I was a kid, that wasn't the case. And I was talking about this with somebody yesterday. If you got first prize, you won a prize. If you got second prize, too bad, you didn't win. Nowadays, they give consolation prizes out to everyone just for participating.
Yeah.
But, in regards to Kristen's question, somebody left a comment in one of my Instagram accounts saying something like she's child free, but she was saying like she loves the idea of being a parent, like the concept of having a child, because like raising a kid in this world and like teaching the kid values and, trying to put like a decent human being in the world, basically. And I remember thinking, it's just parenthood is just so romanticized because raising a child is not. I mean, yes, I hope that every parent would think in those same terms of I want to raise a good human being. I want to raise someone with values. I want to raise someone who's going to do good in this world. But unfortunately, it's not the case. And even if there are some actual well-meaning people who try to do that, and then their kid, for some reason, just turns out to be completely different. So it's a gamble, and I think that it is quite romanticized. And like Lenora, for me, it's also hard to like see past all the things about parenthood that make me, I don't know what the word is, scared or angry, or I don't know. I think the one thing that I do think would be fun is just to hear when kids start talking, they're like so fucking hilarious. They just say the funniest things. I think that would make me like, the one thing that I'm like, this would be cool is just to see what the fuck this kid's gonna say today and just like tweet about it or something. I think it's like, this is my kid, talking again and saying whatever, because they are very funny. But that only lasts for like a year.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. And so I think that might be the other thing that I was thinking about the other day, and it's like, but I do this with my dog. And no, this is not me replacing my child with my dog, but like my dog has like the coolest accessories that he can have. And I was thinking, if I had a kid, like I would dress that kid up in like the coolest clothes up until the time when that kid was like, you know what, stop dressing me up. I can dress myself. Because I like buying cool things, not for me, but for like accessorizing. But that's not reason enough. That's just not. It doesn't make it right to have a kid just for that. Kids are not adults. So
There was a couple interesting things that I discovered the last week. Just I was recovering from a cold and listening to a lot of podcasts, and Gwyneth Paltrow has a podcast, and Oprah Winfrey was her first guest. And this was a couple years ago that this episode came out. And Oprah had said something so profound to Gwyneth Paltrow, who went on to say, I know technically you're not a mother, but that is the most amazing advice I've ever heard about mothering. She said this to Oprah. And Oprah had also mentioned that her friend Gail had, tried to convince her to have a child back in the day, saying, oh, our kids could grow up together, be best friends, blah, blah, blah. And Oprah's like, well, that's not a reason to have a kid. And the other thing was that her own company, Harpo, when she had the TV show, they were like the people that her team was saying, well, you could have a kid. We could have a nursery set up for you. Like everybody was like, I'd never heard this stuff before from her. And she was saying on this podcast that this is what she was receiving. And then flash forward to a few months ago when Cameron Diaz, who recently had a child, was on Gwyneth's podcast. And Cameron said, it's because you wouldn't stop nagging me that I had a child. Because she, her child-free stance has been kind of skewed because, certain interviews she says, if it happens, it happens. Some interviews she's been quoted as saying, we don't need to have kids. So she's been kind of all over the place, like in written interviews. But on the podcast, she said, she was fine. But Gwyneth wouldn't shut up about it. And Gwyneth was like, well, I thought you would be a good mom. So, at the age of 47, she has a child. I think it was in vitro or something. I don't think she acted like it was whatever. I don't think she was pregnant. That just timing wise, it would be kind of weird based on the pictures of her. So there's those two things that I just find interesting in the whole grand scheme of pushing, pardon the pun, children at you. One quote, and this is something I want to get both of your opinions on. You may have heard it. It just came to my attention a couple days ago. It's a quote from Swiss psychologist Carl Jung. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents. Which I have always had that feeling, not necessarily of my own parents, but 100% my grandparents. And other people I saw around me, that unlived life of a parent. And I've been mulling that over a lot the last couple days.
I wonder if that was a projection sort of thing, like maybe that was his experience. I don't think parents who aren't selfish or self-centered are as prone to try to make their kids realize their own unrealized dreams or live the way they want them to live. I know my dad didn't. He was all about do what you need to do. But then, you look at beauty queen moms.
You've seen that with sports parents. And I had only a couple parents in the music world. Actually, as a teenager, I was in a college orchestra, and there were other kids in the orchestra who were only there because their parents were desperate for them to be in an orchestra. It was like a prestigious thing, right? So, I definitely grew up knowing some kids who were forced, and then the minute they had any say in their lives, they quit, which I always thought was dumb. And then, I no longer play. But it was always my idea. But when I became a teacher, I remember that I would interview the families first because I wanted to make sure, because a violin is not an easy instrument to learn. It requires massive time and dedication. And this is not just like, I didn't want just anybody, because this is my time. And I wanted to make sure that the child truly wanted to play the violin and not the parent. And over the years, there was two circumstances where it came to light that this was the dream of the parent. The parent never got the opportunity. Therefore, they really pushed the kid. And you could tell, because kids progress. Even if you're not like super gifted, you progress. And these two kids were not progressing at all. They didn't give a flying fuck. And I was like, I don't have space to teach you. And so I had to say, look, I'm not going to accept you next year because. And so I just remember one family in particular, and they were a really nice family. The girl was really nice, and it was kind of heartbreaking to say, like, look, I can't keep doing this because it's just wasting my time. And just seeing like the crushed look on the mom's face in particular, but I was like, this is not her dream. That's your dream.
Yeah.
And it's commendable, and you've spent a lot of money, and you've gotten her really good violins and all this sort of thing, but she doesn't want to do it, and it's just
all that money on learning for yourself. Just learn the damn violin.
Yeah. I mean, you could. She could have.
Well, it makes more sense. I mean, if your dream is to learn the violin and you never did, you're going to make your kid learn it. And then what? When your kid is playing symphonies, are you going to be envious?
Yeah. My dad taught himself how to play the cello because for years he'd watch me go to orchestra rehearsals. And because I started orchestra in grade 4. And so he always went. Him and Mom would take me to all of my concerts and rehearsals and stuff. And he was always like, one day I'm going to learn how to play the cello. And my mom, when she was still alive, would say to him, no, you're going to learn now. And so I taught him when I was a teenager, even though we were hardly talking. I taught him the basics of how to play the cello. And so he's not by any means a concert cellist, but he has an ear for music, and so he plays. And he basically taught himself after I showed him the basics. And so he picked it up and did it himself. He's not pushing his grandkids, my brother's 2 kids, to learn how to play the cello. It's a dream that he fulfilled himself. So yes, it is absolutely possible.
That'd be such a great short story.
Yeah.
Actually, that would be.
Yeah.
I'll think about that.
I want to know what Kristen would find exciting or interesting about having kids.
Having kids digging through her boxes. I know she loves that.
She loves kids with sticky fingers.
Yeah, kids always around. Anybody always around would really drive me crazy after about a month. I couldn't take it. But part is what Isabel said earlier about kids saying hilarious things. I sometimes don't know how parents do not die laughing. Ian was spraying some kind of bug insect killer out in the garage, and those 2 kids wanted to come in, and he told them, you can't cross into the garage until that bug spray stops dripping from the garage door that was up. And so they're both standing there looking at the garage door, and they're it dripped, so they couldn't go in. They're just watching it drip and watching it drip, and then they finally went inside, and one of them stepped in it. He was like, "Oh no!" He said, "Is this going to make me sick?" And Ian said, "Well, not unless you lick your shoe." He was like, "Okay." And then his mom came from around the other side of the house. She had no idea what was going on. She walked into the garage, and her kids were like, "Just don't lick your shoes." Out of nowhere, she told not to lick her shoes, and she's just like, "Okay." And I'm like, "How are you not?" What a random thing to say. And they would ask, I have these paintings downstairs, and one of them, said, "What is that?" And I said, "What do you think it is?" He said, "It looks like a bunch of black holes." And the brother said, "Black holes aren't orange and white and green." And I said, "So maybe it's a bunch of supernovas. I don't know." But then they went to the next painting, and they were asking what that was, and those were also black holes. And it's just so neat to see what they think when they see things. And I would love to if I had a little kid, I think what would be really fun is to give them a camera and just see what they take pictures of. Because it'd be just fun to know what they're thinking and what interests them, and who they are and how they explore that.
This is why Anthood is so awesome, because I'm like, yes, I've done all these things. I get to do all these things, and it makes me happy because I find these two, like our previous guest, little organisms, to use that term, she finds them interesting. Like, these two organisms that my brother has created, they're very interesting and have interesting thoughts. However, the 14-year-old now stays inside gaming, so you hear just a barrage of swear words for 3 hours on end while he games. So that cuteness that you were talking about earlier, Isabel, yeah, very small window.
Very small window.
It always makes me laugh when I hear or see captions like, "Oh, my child's going to grow up to be great things." I'm like, well, if they get past the 15-year-old stage, maybe. So here's the thing with that dad comment that we received on our selfish episode, the one that Kristen was talking about at the beginning of this episode. If he were to hear something like what we're talking about, like we don't like the messiness of kids, like the constant barrage of talking, all that sort of thing, and then we get the parent going, "Oh, but it's all worth it." Like, it's the love that you get totally outweighs all of the little things that you have to deal with.
No, that's the thing. Kids don't give the love. Kids receive the love. All the love is on the parents' side. The kids are just existing, and they have these parents who take care of them. I'm absolutely convinced that no child actually, first they need their parents, they rely on their parents, it's the person who's doing everything for you. And I guess that could feel like love, but it's not the same. All the love, I'm pretty sure, goes from the parent to the child, and that's not even pure love, because it's the love of I am responsible for this being. I have to care for them. I have to protect them. I have to worry about them, and that's not. I'm sure it's also love, but it's not pure. And it's
because if you don't, you go to jail. There's that. There's the legal obligation, and I think I mentioned the codependent factor as well. There are those that need to be needed. Mm-hmm. And Parenthood would absolutely satisfy that, because when you have an underage child, they need you for everything.
Yeah.
So, of course, that would fill you with the sense of whatever it fills you with.
You might need to be needed so much that you even, write their essays for them, do their homework for them.
My mom did that
for them, get them into a college they didn't earn by paying people off.
My mother put in a lot of work when it came to school for myself and my brother. And I think that is, when I look at that, the dedication that she had, and even my dad, as much as I disagree with how we were raised religious-wise, they put in a lot of time and effort. And to me, I'm like, well, they fulfilled that for themselves, but I don't want to do that. And why is that a bad thing? Because I feel called to something else. And, for a long time I thought it was music. And then now I realize actually the child-free thing feels very much like a calling. But it took a while for that to show up in my life. But why should a person who does not truly feel called to fulfill that parent role, why is that a bad thing? It's not, but I'm just saying, like, I don't understand why it's perceived as such, because like I saw that level of commitment my parents had, and I'm just like, that doesn't speak to me. And I don't want to just have a kid just to make someone happy and then do a subpar job because I don't want to give up my life that I'm called to. I don't want to give up the parts of my life that I am called to. That is my actual calling. Because then that's the unfulfilled life, and I'm not willing to settle for that. So, it'll be an ongoing question from now until the end of time, that maybe 300 years from now someone will be able to answer that will satisfy every critic.
I do want to have someone on, like, the YouTube commenter. I mean, I have always wanted to talk to someone who thinks being child-free is selfish, to ask them why they think that.
Well, he did give a good list of reasons, but at the same time, not really.
They won't talk to us.
No, he wouldn't, because we were gonna do that interview like on our comments, and he never responded back. So, we weren't angry enough for him.
Surely somebody wants to talk about it. Surely somebody wants to, like, tell us why we're wrong.
Why we're selfish? Well, no, why we're wrong by thinking we're not selfish.
Yeah, why we're wrong to not have children.
Well,
and not someone like was it Jamin? Is that how you say it?
Yeah. Or transformed wife person.
Yeah, that's like, I don't want religion to be a part of it because that's too easy. That's the Bible says so.
Yeah, that is too easy.
Yeah, but I think it's hard for these people to actually have a conversation. If you saw the comments that he left there, you're asking questions because we're trying to understand where he's coming from, and he just keeps spewing out all this hate. It's just hate. So that's when you wonder, are you hating on us because you really think we're selfish and this is somehow affecting you? Or are you, being hateful, like you're being mean to us or rude because you wish you would have done the same and then for some reason you didn't?
But he said that he got bored of being child-free.
But he said before that he had always wanted to be a parent.
Yes, he did.
So he kept contradicting himself. So we don't know.
We don't really know. That's true.
If it's the one or the other. And I really honestly don't think that anyone that gets bored of being child-free will then turn around to tell child-free people that we're selfish. If they were really, truly child-free and then at some point they were like, you know what, I'm going to have a kid. That's fine. I mean, human nature. You can change your mind.
Yeah.
I don't think these people would really, if they were happy and like honestly comfortable with their decision, they won't turn around and say to other child-free people, you're wrong, because they were there at some point,
What does getting bored of being child-free even mean? I'm trying to...
I know.
Getting bored of, maybe it was like when we were talking to Aisha, she said that she didn't like the idea of being pitied for not having kids. So maybe he got bored of people questioning him, or bored of feeling like he was on the outside, or seeing everyone else's trajectory take a very predictable sort of path. And like, I'm sure there are surprises when you're a parent when things happen to your children. But overall, that your life will be raising them and taking them to practices and watching them grow up and going to their ceremonies and celebrating them again and again and again. And maybe he didn't know what to do with himself without something forcing him to do something.
Exactly what I was going to say. And this is circling back to what Lenora just said about finding meaning in your life. And instead of having your child do something that you want to do, just go ahead and you fucking do it yourself. Maybe this kind of people just don't find any meaning in their lives because they don't know what they're passionate about. Maybe they don't have any passion. Maybe they just don't want to explore. Maybe they're scared to explore. Maybe they just don't want to put in the time and the effort that it is to actually like do that inward search, like soul searching, and find out what it is that makes you happy. So they think that having a kid and then putting all this effort and energy and resources into another person who needs you, because kids basically need their parents for everything, is going to give their life meaning.
Well, it's that word purpose. And people think the only purpose is the child, but it's not. If you create a community, if you do something that, maybe takes the focus away from you, as in you're making something that's bigger than yourself, I do believe in that. But that does not mean having a child. That may mean creating a company or doing something, artwork or something that reaches more people, not just benefits you, but goes on to reach other people, whether it's 2 other people or 2,000 people or 20,000 people. You know, I mean, everyone has that ability. It has nothing to do with having a kid.
Like if people want to, first of all, not everyone has a passion, and there's a lot of pressure, first of all, on everyone to find their passion and make their passion their life. But not everyone has a passion. Not everyone knows what this one thing is they want to do. Not everybody has that thing. So I forget which, I don't know if it was the Eat, Pray, Love author or the Wild author, but one of them says, forget find your passion or follow your passion. Just follow your curiosity wherever it takes you, because your curiosity might be photography this month, and then it might be painting, then it might be sculpting. And so doing that, I think, is a freeing sort of thing. But then I think behind that, too, is this pressure that a lot of societies place on people to succeed. It's so hard as an adult doing anything to do it without thinking, I have to be good. I have to be able to sell it. I have to be better than other people. If I'm going to do it, if I'm going to put all this time into it, I have to excel instead of just enjoying it. So there's that pressure too. Like even if that guy who decided to have kids because he didn't know what else to do, and we'll just assume that even though he didn't say it, because we've met people like that. We know what they're going to say anyway. As he said about us, if he wanted to paint, he might have thought, I really dig painting. I want to go, to this art store and get all these paints and all these canvases, and I'm too old to start. I'm probably never going to be any good. What's the point? I think a lot of people just cut themselves off from joy because they're either starting something too late, or they think they're never going to be good enough at it, whatever that means. And I'm guilty of it too. I mean, I think a lot of people, I started painting for a while after, like this year, I was in this painting frenzy because I had a creative need since I wasn't writing. And it was really hard to get past, I'm going to totally suck at this. I don't even know what the point is. I'm never going to be any good. Why am I doing this? Why am I spending the time? But doing it, once I got over that need to be exceptional, was so much fun. And I learned so much, and I got really good at colors.
I really want to ask Isabel to tell that story of your mother, about supporting your child for your decision. You had told us this in our chat, our co-host chat, a couple months ago.
Yeah. I guess I should start by saying that when I came out as child free, quote unquote, came out, like I told my parents and my sister mainly, I really didn't know what to expect. And turns out that my mom was the one who was showing the most resistance to the idea. And I thought she was going to be the most open-minded because we get along very well. We've always done. But I think maybe she just really wants to be a grandmother. So when I told them that I was never going to have kids, I don't think she actually thought I was being truthful. Not truthful. I think she thought I wasn't, this was a phase, and it was just going to blow over at some point. I remember my sister's reaction was, she said to me, well, thank you for not making me an aunt, but she was saying it sarcastically. But that blew over like 3 days after, and she was fine with it. My dad was like, okay. He's always been like, you do with your life whatever you want. Like, I don't care, be happy. But my mom, she thought, I think maybe she thought it was a phase at the beginning. But then when I decided to get my surgery, my elective tube tying surgery, she just went completely crazy. Like, she went to crazy town when I told her. My dad's a doctor, so when I told her, she just went off at him for some reason, like telling him to tell me.
People like you perform stuff like this.
Yeah, like telling him to tell me that I was making a mistake because it was an elective surgery. I didn't need it. And I remember my dad calling me and saying, I just want to understand why you're choosing to do this from a medical point of view. So I told him, and he was like, okay, fine. It's your body, your choice. So, but my mom was the one who actually took me to the hospital when I got my tubes tied. And she was the one who was there with me in recovery when I almost died as well. So I think she was scared that something like that was going to happen, and it did. Um,
I told you.
yeah. If you want to know more about that story, go to my podcast. Anyway, but then she's always like, after that, I think she just she went through a period of grief, and I didn't realize this because she never actually told me. But she was always very quiet about the subject. Like, whenever I brought it up, she wouldn't say anything. She would be like, change the subject, or like ask me about something else, or you know. So I think my mom processed the whole thing without telling me anything. And I thought that was going to be like, it was going to be like that for the rest of my life. Like, we're never going to mention the fact that I had consciously decided not to have children, and that I actually had this elective surgery for, to prevent that. Then this was like a month ago or something, 2 months ago. I was having a conversation with her, and she asked me something about what I wanted to do with all this knowledge and like the wisdom and everything that I have been experiencing during this time. And I told her I really want to like speak to younger generations. I want to talk to people, in like women who are in high school or even universities. And I think that there's a lot that can be done here, especially because there's a lot of misinformation here regarding birth control and just sexual reproductive rights and freedom, basically. And she was like, oh, you know what? I could help you. I have like a contact in this university, and I have like a contact in this school, but because she worked in education her whole life. And that really took me by surprise. Like, I think she just went like from not accepting it to like just really knowing that this is my choice, it's my life. And now she's like, I feel like she's on my side and supporting me, actively supporting me in what I want to do. So that's the story that Lenora wanted me to tell today.
I think that is so awesome. I remember you were really emotional when you shared that with us,
Yeah.
when that first happened, because a lot of conversations that I've had with people, and I'm sure you two have had with people, just talking about dealing with the family member, like the family first, telling them that, yeah, I'm not going to have kids, or, whether it's you're making that decision alone or you're making it as a couple or whatever, it's a hopeful story, because not everyone has parental support or family support, and not everyone's going to get that. But there is hope that you never know. I think, like, my dad was the first person I told. My mom had already died, so I didn't tell her, obviously, but and he was cool with it. But now, like, the last year, since we've been doing this podcast for a year, and since I've had a bigger vision, or a more clear vision, for the Bitchy Bookkeeper, I explained to him what it is that I do, because he doesn't, he's like, okay, so you have a show and you write a blog and you write articles, like, I show him like my social media, and so he sees that, but Dad's not online. Like, he has no clue what any of that stuff means, really. So I just tell him what the purpose is, like Isabel, you were saying, what you envision. You want to speak to people, and that's what I want to do too. I want my stuff to reach younger people, and I want to entertain people on that topic, bringing awareness. And I explained that to them. Like, that's why I do all this stuff. I said, some of it works, some of it doesn't. I said, but the whole point is I'm having fun expressing myself, telling people that not telling, but sharing my experience as a child-free by choice woman, in a way that suits my style. And I said, this is the opportunities that have appeared in the last 2 years, and this is what I'm doing, and this is why I do it. So he understands the end game for me, that it's about bringing awareness, and he likes that. He thinks it's neat. It's beyond, like, it goes over his head, like he won't watch the show and he won't read anything, and he doesn't need to. But and for me, I'm like that. I've never gotten my parents' approval. I've never gone to my parents for approval, so it's not something that I go, I'm going to tell my dad, and he's going to tell me it's amazing. Like, my brother does that, because my brother's totally on board with having these conversations, even though he has 2 kids. And he's, my age generally, so he understands the process of this. But, I think if you talk to your family, I mean, the whole point is you want to be happy. You want to make the choice for yourself to be happy. you would think that good parents would support that, even if they don't agree with what you're doing, or they don't understand, right? So, yeah, I just wanted to share that story because I don't want anyone that's struggling with family who is really unsupportive. You know, I want to bring hope. That's all I want to do for anything is just bring hope.
Like Lenora was saying, they may not agree with you, but it's nice if they can separate themselves from you and, you know, have their own identity and recognize your identity, like it sounds like your dad does, Lenora, and respect what you're doing and be proud of you for having the initiative to do it and be or admire your, you know, the hard work you put into it without necessarily agreeing with you. My mother, the last time I talked to her, said that she said, well, I don't want to tell you what I'm doing because I don't think you'll like it. I said, well, what is it? And she said, she was someone in some kind of Republican, not really Republican, more like Trump party, calling themselves Republican. Someone in some sort of political leadership position had stepped down or gone away for some reason, and she was filling in until it was time for the next vote. And I had told her years ago, you know, you're so passionate about politics. You have so much to say and so much, you know, energy into it. And these are all things I don't agree with. Like, I don't agree with anything that she believes politically because she is a Trump cultist and not necessarily a Republican or even a libertarian. She's all Trump all the time. However, if you have that much to say and you have all these changes you want to make, do something, get into politics. So she told me she got into this, and I was like, that's awesome. That is amazing. I'm so happy you're doing that. I would never want to see what you have to say. I don't want to know what you're telling people, but I think it's really great that you're doing that. And I wish parents could just do that all the time for their kids.
Oh, 100%. Oh, okay. Just occurred to me. That question that was asked, what is there anything about childhood or being a parent that excites you? The thought of being able to tell that kid, you don't have to have kids. That would be exciting. You know? To be able to say, hey, like, I could be one of those parents, be like, you do not have to have kids. Not at all. Don't even think about it. No one's going to ask you that question. That would have been cool.
That's all for this episode. Thank you for watching and or listening. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can reach us at childfreegirls@gmail.com.
You can also reach us in any of the social media platforms that we are. We are mainly on Instagram and Facebook, but you can also look for us on Pinterest, and I think we're not on LinkedIn anymore. But we're also on Twitter. Just look for @Childfree Girls.
We have a book. It's on Amazon. You can find it, Childfree Girls, Comfort Food for Thought, $1.99 on Kindle, also available on paperback. Our website is childfreegirls.com. Can't remember if I already said that. And reviews. If you enjoy listening to this podcast, please leave a review on whatever podcast app you're listening to. And you can support our YouTube channel by subscribing below.
Today's question, which we would love for you to answer wherever you're listening to this, you can email us too, is there anything about being a parent that you think would just be super fun? We would love to know. It doesn't mean you want kids. It doesn't mean anyone's going to question your child-free status. It's okay to think parts of it will be fun.
We're not going to say we told you so, because we didn't tell you so.
Leave your comments
down there. Or email if it's very personal. But don't get too personal.
Well, why not? Personal's good. We get personal all the time. Didn't you hear our, like, Doctor in the Woods thing? See ya.
Bye.
Bye. No, you say bye.
No, you say bye.
Oh my God, I'm leaving.
You leave first.
I'm going.
Bye.
Bye.